Imagine that every decision you have ever made, every word you have spoken, every person you have loved, every mistake, every success was already beginning before you were even aware of it. It sounds impossible. After all, it feels like you are making choices every second. You decided to watch this video. You chose what to eat today. You chose where to live, who to trust, who to become. Or did you? For thousands of years, philosophers have debated one of humanity's oldest questions. Do we truly possess free will, or are our choices simply the final result of countless invisible forces? Ancient Greek philosophers wrestled with this mystery. Stoic thinkers believed the universe followed an unbreakable chain of cause and effect. Others argued that human freedom existed because moral responsibility required it. Centuries later, religious scholars, scientists, and psychologists would ask the very same question. But today, the debate has moved from philosophy into the laboratory. Modern neuroscience has begun asking something remarkable. What if your brain starts making decisions before you consciously experience making them? In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet conducted an experiment that would challenge everything people believed about free will. Participants were asked to perform a simple action: move a finger whenever they wanted. At the same time, their brain activity was carefully recorded. The expectation seemed obvious. First, a person decides. Then, the brain sends the command. But something unexpected happened. Electrical activity inside the brain appeared hundreds of milliseconds before participants reported consciously deciding to move. The brain seemed to prepare the action before the conscious mind became aware of the decision. One experiment sparked decades of controversy. Did consciousness merely observe decisions already made elsewhere? Or was something more complex happening? Since then, scientists around the world have repeated, expanded, and challenged these findings. Some experiments suggest that simple decisions may begin unconsciously. Others argue that consciousness still has an important role, especially when decisions become more complex. The debate remains open, but one thing became clear. The human mind is far more mysterious than we once imagined. Perhaps the feeling of making a decision is only part of a much larger process unfolding beneath awareness. And if that is true, then a disturbing question emerges. If your brain begins choosing before you know it, who is really in control? To be continued. Your brain may be deciding before you do. For decades, scientists have searched for the place where free will begins. Not in philosophy, but inside the human brain. After Benjamin Libet's famous experiment, researchers asked an even bigger question. Could they predict a person's choice before the person was consciously aware of making it? In 2008, a team of neuroscientists used functional MRI scanners to investigate. Participants were asked to make a simple decision: press the button with the left hand or the right. Nothing complicated, just choose. As volunteers lay inside the scanner, their brains were constantly being monitored. The result surprised even the researchers. Patterns of brain activity appeared several seconds before participants reported making a conscious decision. In some cases, the computer could predict which button a person would press before the person believed they had chosen. The predictions were far from perfect, but they were better than chance. It raised an unsettling possibility. Perhaps conscious awareness arrives later than the processes that begin a decision. Yet, not everyone agreed with this interpretation. Many neuroscientists argued that these experiments involved only extremely simple actions. Choosing between two buttons is not the same as choosing a career, or falling in love, or sacrificing yourself for another person. Human decisions exist on many levels. Some are automatic. Others involve reflection, planning, emotion, memory, and values built over an entire lifetime. The brain itself reflects this complexity. More than 86 billion neurons communicate through trillions of connections. Every second, they exchange electrical and chemical signals at extraordinary speed. Most of this activity never reaches conscious awareness. Your brain constantly predicts, filters information, recognizes patterns, adjusts your posture, controls your heartbeat, processes language, interprets faces, and prepares possible actions long before you notice any of it. Conscious thought may be only the visible tip of an enormous hidden system. Psychologists describe another powerful influence: habits. The more often we repeat an action, the more efficiently the brain performs it. Driving a familiar road, typing your password, brushing your teeth, even certain emotional reactions. Many behaviors eventually become automatic, not because we choose them each time, but because the brain has learned to conserve energy. Then there are influences we rarely notice: your genes, your childhood, your culture, your education, your friendships, the language you speak, even your mood, or whether you slept well last night. Every experience leaves a small mark on the brain. Over years, those marks shape how we perceive the world and how we respond to it. Does this mean we are simply biological machines following invisible programming? Not necessarily. Many scientists believe consciousness still plays a critical role, perhaps not by creating every thought, but by evaluating them, questioning them, changing them, stopping them. Some researchers call this the veto. The brain may generate an impulse, but conscious awareness can interrupt it. Pause, reflect, choose a different path. If that is true, free will may not begin with the first impulse. It may begin with what happens next. And perhaps the greatest freedom humans possess is not choosing every thought, but deciding which thoughts deserve to become actions. To be continued. Who is really making your decisions? Imagine that free will is not what we have always believed it to be. Not complete freedom, not complete determinism, but something in between. If every decision is influenced by your genes, your memories, your environment, your emotions, and your experiences, then perhaps no choice is ever made in isolation. But does influence mean destiny? Not necessarily. Consider two people. Both grow up in similar circumstances. Both face the same challenges, yet one chooses compassion while the other chooses violence. What explains the difference? Science still doesn't know. Perhaps the brain is more than a machine following fixed instructions. Perhaps consciousness allows us to examine our own impulses, to pause, to imagine consequences, to rewrite habits. This ability to reflect on our own thinking is known as metacognition. It may be one of the most remarkable abilities humans possess. Instead of simply reacting, we can ask ourselves, is this really the person I want to become? That single question has changed lives. History is filled with people who overcame the circumstances that shaped them. People born into poverty who became great scientists. People raised in hatred who chose forgiveness. People surrounded by violence who dedicated their lives to peace. If every action were completely predetermined, such transformations would be difficult to explain. Perhaps freedom is not the absence of causes. Perhaps freedom is the ability to respond differently to those causes. And the question becomes even more fascinating when we think about artificial intelligence. Modern AI can analyze information, recognize patterns, and even appear to make decisions. But does it truly choose? Or is it simply following probabilities generated from enormous amounts of data? If one day a machine claims, "I made this decision because I wanted to," would we believe it? How could we know whether that desire was genuine or merely simulated? Ironically, the movie's artificial intelligence, the more we are forced to question our own minds. What separates a programmed response from a conscious choice? No one knows for certain. After thousands of years, the mystery remains. Neuroscience continues to reveal how deeply unconscious processes shape our behavior. Psychology shows how experience influences every decision. Philosophy reminds us that responsibility, morality, and justice depend on how we understand choice. Perhaps free will is neither an illusion nor an unlimited power. Perhaps it exists, not in the first impulse, but in the moment between impulse and action. The brief instant when we stop, think, question ourselves, and decide whether to continue or choose another path. Maybe that moment is where freedom truly lives. Because in the end, the greatest question is not, do humans have free will? Perhaps the greater question is, what will you choose now that you know how your mind works? And perhaps that answer is the closest thing to freedom we will ever find.